Firefighters of Reddit, what's the most bizarre cause of fire you've ever seen, heard? In California during the 80s there was a series of fires and a skilled fire investigator was hired to find the culprit. It turned out that he was the arsonist all along. It was on this day in 1992 that a jury found Orr guilty of setting fire to 3 stores in the San Joaquin Valley. Convictions and other arsons followed, including the Olays tragedy and a blaze in the Glendale Hills that incinerated more than 60 homes. Orr was ultimately suspected in more than 1,000 fires, leading an FBI analyst to call him probably the most prolific American arsonist of the 20th century. Suspected to be responsible for more than 1,000 blazes. Man, his career was on fire. I'm not a firefighter, however, the fire station in my hometown burned down. People started calling the fire station telling them it was on fire, and they didn't believe it until they finally walked outside and looked. They had just enough time to get the fire engines and a few things out before it got too bad. It ended up burning to the ground and they had a new one built. We had 2 separate fires in a year that were caused by the sun shining through a window, through an object and causing the magnifying glass effect. One was a glass paperweight sitting on top of a stack of papers. It burned a hole straight through the stack, down to the desk. It was wild. The other one escapes me at the moment. Might have been the sun shining through a glass bottle or something if memory serves me correctly. Either way, it's relatively bizarre to get a call like that, let alone 2. And both were fairly close to one another. Even more ironic, a friend of mine had this happen in his own home the same year. The sun was shining on a Santa Claus figurine and the fabric robe caught fire. Actual firefighter here. Years ago during my training, a guy parked his work van in a parking lot, threw a chain he had from the cabin to the back, and went inside the store. Each end of the chain happened to land on battery posts still hooked up to some machinery inside the van. It sparked and melted the tarp it was on, and shortly the whole van was up in flames. Pretty crazy odds. There was a rash of fires in my area. After years they clued in that it had to be arson. After burning several hundred acres and evacuating a nearby town, the arsonist finally made a mistake. The arson investigators found his ignition device, which involved a cigarette that usually burnt up in the blaze. But a single cigarette doesn't prove anything. However, the fire marshal got a gut feeling about it and decided to hit up the nearest gas station CCTV footage an hour prior to the blaze. To his surprise he saw a local highway patrolman that was also a former fire department chief. The patrolman, who was also deeply religious and didn't smoke, bought a pack of cigarettes and left. The fire marshal contacted Highway Patrol and they examined the GPS coordinates of the patrolman at the time of the fire, and guess where he was? To bring him in quietly they decided to have someone who he trusted request an interview in front of a camera in the county building where he'd be required to surrender his gun before entering. The trusted man they selected was the fire marshal himself, as they had fought fire together for years. The patrolman surrendered his gun willingly and entered the interview with the fire marshal, who proceeded to show him the evidence they had against him. Fortunately, the patrolman confessed to everything and surrendered, and has cooperated with authorities since. I'm not a firefighter but we have a lot of fires in the city I live in. I think the dumbest one yet was when a guy tried casting his own sword in his house. I repeat, he tried casting a sword in his house. He lived on the most flammable street in the city. There's been a lot of fires on that street. Also this particular fire was all over the global news. Firefighter but not my calls. Most likely all happened in Florida. Meth headlights farts on fire in meth lab equals kaboom woman tries to kill spider with fire equals building burns down. A-holes cover rat in gasoline, lit on fire, runs into building burning it down. Filmed whole thing and got caught. Obligatory not a firefighter. A guy and his chemist friend made cesium metal while drunk. It went about as well as you would think drunk chemistry would go, and their whole porch was on fire soon after. They were neighbors of mine, remember it like it was yesterday. Lesson of the day, don't try to make volatile metals while wasted.